What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Frogs Up TCU Sports Podcast. I am Russ Hodges. That is Anthony North. We are recording here Friday evening, December 29th. It is almost New Year's. It is our last episode of 2023. We hope that all of you had a great Christmas holiday, and we hope that all of you have a great New Year coming up. I've got a few family plans of my own. Got a little party going on Sunday. No work, of course, on Monday, having New Year's Day off. So excited to just kick back and live it up a little bit, watch some football, and get ready for 2024.
Yeah, for sure. It was a good Christmas holiday, and looking forward to this weekend's holiday. It's going to be a big holiday hoops, I think, for me. Looking forward to attending the women's game and the men's game this week. Still under those, you got those general admission tickets to the TCU games. Everybody should get on the train for those because you got $5 to the women's game, $10 to the men's game, general admission tickets, as the students are still not back in session. So go fill the Schollmaier, go see these two exciting teams. I'm looking forward to it. That'll be a big part of my holiday weekend here, as well as cooking out, grilling some chicken wings, and having a little party here at the house as well.
And in the spirit of New Year's, we will be spending some time on this podcast reflecting on what 2023 brought us for TCU sports and reflecting on some of the highlights and some of our favorite moments from 2023. And we'll take a look ahead to 2024 as well and talk about some of the changes that'll be coming our way as TCU fans and what some of our New Year's resolutions will be for TCU Athletics as we get ready to turn that page in the calendar and move into 2024. We also have some updates. TCU men's basketball closing out the Diamond Head Classic tournament with a win over Hawaii. The women's team, as Anthony said, will be tipping off Big 12 play against BYU tomorrow, Saturday evening at Schollmaier. Again, concluding non-conference play undefeated at 13-0. Not many TCU football updates for this episode, but we do have some Big 12 bowl game updates. It is bowl season, and the Big 12 teams have been kicking some butt there. So let's waste no more time. Let's get into it here. This episode, of course, is brought to y'all by our friends at Charlie Hustle Clothing Company. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. Go to charliehustle.com. Use that promo code FROGSOWAR. Get 15% off any TCU merchandise. We also have our exclusive promo code through our partnership with the 1012 Network that gets you 15% off any item at charliehustle.com. That's the promo code 101215, TEN1215. Christmas is past, but maybe you need a New Year's gift for somebody. Go get some swag at charliehustle.com. Also consider some On It Athlete TCU Horned Frog football trading cards. Affiliate links posted to our website and our social media. $12.99 a pack. 33% of all revenue goes to NIL. Support TCU football, support student athletes, and pick up some TCU football trading cards. We also have our exclusive promo code for Prize Picks if you are interested in playing daily fantasy sports. Again, it is bowl season. There's a lot of daily fantasy sports still going on for the NFL. Use a promo code FROGS12, FROGS12. That gets you a 100% deposit match up to $100. All right, TCU men's basketball. This is fairly old news by now, but since we last talked, TCU had played 2 games at the Diamond Head Classic tournament in Hawaii, picking up a first-round victory, but then falling to Nevada to move into the 3rd place game where TCU took on Hawaii this past weekend and won the game 65-51 to finish 3rd place in the tournament. This was a fairly good game for TCU. The Frogs controlled the game pretty much all the way through. I don't think Hawaii really threatened very much. A team that shoots the 3 ball really well struggled in this game. I think Hawaii shot well under 30% from 3 in this game, and they had some decent looks in the second half. I watched a chunk of this game. A lot of that was the second half, and they were getting some good looks, and they just weren't knocking down shots. And TCU also was forcing a lot of turnovers. I believe 19 turnovers forced in this game, and offensively not a light show by any means, but TCU shot fairly well from the floor. about 46% from the field, shot the three ball much better than they did in the Nevada game. And perhaps the most interesting aspect of this game was that TCU made a change to the starting lineup. Jamie Dixon moved Avery Anderson and Trey Tennyson off the bench into the starting lineup. Jameer Nelson and Jacoby Coles were taken out of the starting lineup, moved to the bench, and offensively, 65 points. You think, okay, TCU maybe didn't shoot the ball all that well, but they were having to score quite a bit out of the half court. They weren't able to get out on the fast break very much. I think they had maybe 10 fast break points in the game, but TCU dominated in the paint as they've been doing for most of the season. Got a lot of contributions off the bench. Jameer Nelson was actually the leading scorer for TCU with 13 points off the bench. TCU out-rebounded Hawaii, had more points off turnovers and more points in transition. So collectively, TCU goes 2-1 in this tournament, moves to 10-2 on the season. We will see if Jamie Dixon sticks with this lineup, as TCU has one final non-conference tune-up remaining against Texas A&M Commerce. That'll be on New Year's Day, Monday evening. We will see if Jamie Dixon sticks with that lineup or if he elects to move Jameer Nelson or Jacoby Coles or both of them back into the starting lineup. But overall, this was a game that TCU had to win against Hawaii. And again, the Frogs really controlled this game all the way through. I don't think they were really in much danger of losing. And a double-digit win in a tournament setting on a neutral site, even though it was basically a home game for Hawaii, always feels good. So a positive as TCU takes a step forward after a tough loss to Nevada.
Yeah, I think don't sleep on this result. I think this is a really impressive bounce back win for TCU basketball to come back from the poor shooting performance and poor defensive performance to get this win. I mean, Hawaii, you think ho-hum, you get a 14-point win over Hawaii, even if it's considered a road game, kind of whatever. But Hawaii, that ranks right now as maybe the one or first or second best win on the resume for TCU for the season. So, this was actually probably one of the tougher tests that TCU had. And I talked about it going into the game for last week that, Hawaii was shooting really well and was defending really well. And TCU was able to, kind of flip that on them and hold them well below average on 3-point percentage, on field goal percentage, forcing turnovers, but even, scoring in the half court. So I'm I think this does not fall under the category of one of those, maybe like TCU's upcoming game, where it's an obvious win that TCU should run away by 30 points and it doesn't really matter. I think this was a good result and will, has an opportunity to become a quad 2 result if Hawaii improves a little bit. I think this is a team that could end up winning its conference, could be a tournament team. So I think that it's a big win for TCU. I know it's it probably doesn't sound good on the resume, but I think if you took the name away and just looked at the metrics, Hawaii is better than a lot of Power 6 conference teams out there. So definitely kudos to the team. And I think the change in the starting lineup was something that I think you and I talked about, and that we thought some kind of shakeup was needed. You look at some of the advanced metrics where Jameer Nelson was getting a ton of usage on the offensive end and was not producing. So for him to kind of take a little bit of a backseat role off of the starting lineup, move into the 6-man role, and then produce out of that role, I think that was good to see. I don't know how Dixon and the staff is going to shake it up going forward, particularly into the Kansas game next Saturday. But, I think that seeing TCU win in different ways is something that is good to see, and to win a game of this caliber is impressive. So I think I don't know that we'll learn much on New Year's Day against Texas A&M Commerce or whatever it is. Probably a borderline 300 Ken Palm team. So maybe not the biggest test. Not to sleep on anybody, but I think getting some of these wrinkles mixed in, getting some of these problems ironed out before that Kansas game and into the gauntlet of the Big 12 schedule, I think this was a move in the right direction there.
And Jamie Dixon has talked about the defense at times lacking a little bit, and to hold Hawaii to 51 points, which is a season low for them, is an accomplishment. And you said it, with TCU going to Kansas to open up Big 12 play. Holy cow, look at this schedule for the Frogs. The first 3 games of Big 12 play, 3 top 8 teams in the country, with number 2 Kansas on Saturday, January 6th, followed up with Oklahoma number 7 and Houston number 3. I mean, this is as difficult of a start to conference play as you can get. And I guess as TCU moves into these 3 games, I like what I saw from Trey Tennyson in the Hawaii game. I thought he was efficient from the floor, which is what he's going to bring. He was a very efficient shooter during his time at Corpus Christi, and the luxury of having Avery Anderson, who was a starter at Oklahoma State and is a veteran guy who's been in college basketball for a few years now. Trey Tennyson, same way. He's a veteran guard that's been a starter for a few years in college basketball now. Maybe not the same level of competition, but with that depth and that experience, you can afford to have Jameer Nelson come off the bench. You can afford to have Jacoby Coles come off the bench. And who knows if this will be permanent or just temporary until those guys start to get going, because we've seen Jacoby Coles score and shoot at a very high level in the past, and Jameer Nelson is a 20 point per game scorer from his time at the mid-major program Delaware. So hopefully these 2 guys can get it going entering Big 12 play. And I guess just to preview a little bit, Anthony, I'll ask your thoughts with this gauntlet of games that are coming up. What's the reasonable expectation for TCU as far as maybe wins or losses, and how can TCU emerge from some of these games with victories?
I think it's reasonable to expect TCU to come out at home in the Big 12 home opener against Oklahoma, who may still be a top 10 AP ranked team at that time, and get a win. I think that is reasonable. That's probably your best chance at a win. TCU will probably be, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 8 point underdogs, at least at Kansas and even at home against Houston. So, to reasonably expect wins out of the Kansas and Houston games, I think you're fighting an uphill battle there for sure. Mm-hmm. But the Oklahoma game, I kind of feel like Oklahoma's playing a little bit above its station right now, and all credit to them. But I think that's the best chance that TCU has to find a win out of those first 3. I mean, Kansas, Hunter Dickinson, and whether TCU can throw him off his game. The Kansas Jayhawk big man who transferred in from Michigan is probably going to be a candidate for Player of the Year. They have DeJuan Harris has been around college basketball forever, it seems like, and is an incredibly talented distributor and scorer. They don't maybe have the guy like the Grady Dick or some of these guys they've had in the past who are bona fide one and done lottery picks, top 5 picks, but it's a very well-rounded team, and obviously Bill Self is an excellent coach. So that, and going into that building, it's going to be on CBS. It's the prime time, like midday game on CBS Saturday. It is a national spotlight, and can TCU thrive on that? Trying to look at some of these places where Kansas maybe has not been as strong this season. They're not one of those teams that'll kill you from 3-point range. They don't shoot a ton of threes. But they make a lot of them when they do take them. So, it's hard to find a flaw with them. Maybe finding a way to get them out of their rhythm. With Ernest Udeh Jr. coming over from Kansas, maybe there's something there. He can exert his will. He was basically pushed out or decided to make the move out of Kansas because Dickinson was brought in. They NIL recruited over him from the transfer portal, and I think it would sure be nice to see Udeh kind of throw that back at them and handle Dickinson in the post and lead the Frogs to a victory. Do I see that as a realistic path forward? I think I would be a little overly optimistic to suggest TCU should win that game, but I think they can. I mean, we've seen TCU when they put on the entire package, TCU is going to be tough to stop even against a team of Kansas's caliber. So it's going to be fun, but man, TCU is going to have to win 10 or 11 games in the Big 12. And, there's some teams that are a little bit worse than maybe you would have expected. West Virginia's maybe certainly fallen off further from where they were expected. But it's going to be tough to get that volume of wins out of this conference to be able to earn an NCAA tournament bid. Any win you get in this conference, it's going to be hard fought and well earned.
Mm. Yeah, and going back to the Kansas game, I think TCU's really going to have to play a perfect game to win, and I think you can say that about Houston as well. And to the credit of some of the big guys, I think Ernest Udeh had a pretty solid tournament at the Diamond Head Classic, and even Xavier Cork had a nice game against Hawaii. He was rebounding the ball well, sure. And he's a guy who he seems to have a good game and then just sputter off for 3 or 4, and then he has another good game and then sputters off a little bit. So if Udeh and Xavier Cork can somehow find a way to be effective against a Hunter Dickinson, then maybe TCU has a chance. And as we saw last year, I mean, TCU went out to Lawrence, and Shahade Wells, who is right now balling out of control at McNeese State, he was shooting lights out in that game. And maybe somebody comes through with another performance like that for TCU, and the Frogs can go out to Lawrence and pull out another shocker there against Kansas. So we will continue to follow TCU men's basketball, of course, not only here on Frogs Up, but on our website, frogsofwar.com. So continue to stay posted on all things TCU men's basketball. For the women's team, we talked about it during our last episode, a historic start to the season for first-year head coach Mark Campbell and his crew. TCU finishing non-conference play undefeated, 13-0, tipping off the Big 12 schedule tomorrow against BYU. Again, Anthony, I know you're going to be there. I know you're excited to check that out. Looking at the start of the schedule in Big 12 play for the women, there are going to be some tests there too. Second conference game is against number 10 Baylor, and that's on the road. That's going to be a big time test for TCU, who is right now number 23 in the polls, moved up a couple of spots after picking up that 13th win. You have Oklahoma State, which that might be on the road as well. I can't remember. I might have to double check. But regardless, there are going to be some tough tests early on for the women as well. So I guess, Anthony, what are you excited to see tomorrow? And what would you like to see from this women's team if they hope to get the Big 12 slate started out on a high note?
Yeah, I think it's show that what you've been doing against what is pretty lowly competition works against Big 12 competition. BYU is not the top of the Big 12. I'm scrolling down the net. Let's see, they're all the way down at 95 overall in the NCAA net. So not the top of the conference, one of the 2 or 3 lowest rated right now in the conference, but that's still a significant jump up from, TCU's average opponent rating is like in the 300s. So this is a big step up in competition generally for TCU here. So does Madison Connor still shoot the lights out? Does Sedona Prince still dominate the paint and really dominate everything, every aspect of the game? Does Jaden Owens still get that volume of assists? Does this team and the way that it plays still work at that elite high level, AP top 25 level against a real opponent? Not to be too dismissive of the schedule that TCU's played to date, but BYU represents a much more difficult opponent. So, the Cougars come in 10-3 overall, with all 3 losses coming on the road. So hopefully the Horned Frogs give them a 4th road loss, but certainly not a team to take lightly. And that's really what I'm hoping to see is can they keep this up? Because it feels like it should be, because the stuff that's working is you've got these elite talents and they're putting on a show. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the show on Saturday and getting back into Schollmaier and seeing a TCU win.
Yeah, and of course we will also continue to follow the women's team, not only here on Frogs Up, but also on frogsaward.com. Drew Carlton, one of our staff writers, will be taking on that women's beat here. So continue to follow us online and here on the podcast for women's updates. I think that'll wrap it up for basketball this evening. We do have some football items to hit on before we get into our New Year's talk. TCU football-wise, there isn't much new to report. As we talked about on our last episode, the early signing day was held on December 20th. TCU finalizing a lot of commitments with transfer portal players and high school JUCO recruits. We've talked, of course, about the change at defensive coordinator and how that could impact the Frogs, position coaches staying put. So we don't have much TCU football news to share this evening, but we do have some Big 12 teams that are kicking some butt in the postseason right now. Big 12 teams, 5-3 in 8 bowl games so far. The Pop-Tarts Bowl was going viral on social media. We talked about it before we hit the record button. Whoever thought of the idea to make the edible mascot
Genius
deserves a lifetime contract. That's one of the best marketing strategies that I've ever seen for something like this. We've seen the Cheez-It Bowl with all the Cheez-Its flying around, and West Virginia beats North Carolina in the Mayo Bowl, and we've seen the coaches getting the mayonnaise dumped on their heads. But as someone who grew up loving Pop-Tarts and still loves Pop-Tarts to this day, I was very excited to see that play out. And
we have to know what's your go-to Pop-Tart.
You know what? I'm kind of an ordinary guy when it comes to that. I'm cool with the blueberry or the strawberry Pop-Tarts. I'm not a big fan of some of the the apple cinnamon and the cinnamon brown sugar. Those aren't really my my go-tos. I love the blueberry ones. Even the raspberry ones. I don't know if they still make those. I can't remember the name of the what's the Pop-Tart with like the purple, blue purple icing with like the colored swirls in it? It's like a mixed berry.
I can see it, but yeah, I don't know the name.
Yeah, I can see it. I can't. I'm not a true Pop-Tart fan, I guess, if I can't think of the name of it.
There you
But
go.
no, I stick with the blueberry and the strawberry. What about you?
Man, I hadn't had a Pop Tart in forever. I hadn't even seen Pop Tarts in forever, but my parents had them at their house that we were visiting over the holidays. I didn't actually have one, but my kids had the Pop Tarts. I think they had some strawberry with the icing with the sprinkles on it, and those were a hit.
Yeah, I mean the Pop Tarts are everywhere, and I think they have a cereal now, and they have the mini bites, and you can never go wrong with a Pop Tart as a snack. But anyways, enough Pop Tarts talk. Kansas State and NC State were playing in this game, two top 25 teams, and Kansas State, the Avery Johnson era, officially beginning, I guess, with a 28-19 win there over the Wolfpack. One of five wins by Big 12 teams in the bowl games. Texas Tech dominating Cal in the Independence Bowl, 34-14 there. Kansas picking up a big win over UNLV, a good team out of the Mountain West this year, a 9-win team, winning the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, 49-36, a big game from Jason Bean, who was the MVP of that game. The Texas Bowl, Oklahoma State taking down Texas A&M 31-23 as the Aggies finish another underwhelming season with a underwhelming record there. West Virginia, as I mentioned, no Drake May for North Carolina, and the Mountaineers roll it in this game, the Mayo Bowl, 30-10, and finishing 9-4 on the season. A very quiet 9-4 for West Virginia, it seems, and Neil Brown will probably be sticking around there for a little bit longer as West Virginia gets that ninth win. A couple of losses. Iowa State loses the Liberty Bowl to Memphis 36-26. UCF fell in the Gasparilla Bowl, whatever the heck that is. Georgia Tech beats UCF 30-17. And the most noteworthy one, the Alamo Bowl, TCU two-time Alamo Bowl winners over the last decade. Arizona and Oklahoma, a Big 12 newcomer versus a Big 12 team on its way out. And Jackson Arnold got the start for the Sooners. And this was a tough game for Oklahoma, who has also lost quite a few players to the portal. Arizona wins 38-24 as Oklahoma's final game as a Big 12 team is a loss to a newcomer. So I haven't watched too much of this outside of the Pop-Tarts Bowl, of course, but Anthony, what are your thoughts on some of these results, and any surprises here? Any extra details or just thoughts about these results and what they could mean for the future of the conference?
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't want to take away too much from these bowl games, particularly some of these way down the line bowl games. I mean, I feel like the Alamo Bowl was awesome. That was a great game. Arizona was terrific. Jackson Arnold looked pretty shook early. I mean, in his first real action. So that was a great game. But what this says, and like I said, you don't want to take away too much from it, but I think there are a few things that are kind of this says maybe the Big 12 didn't have the best overall season top to bottom. There were a few stinkers, TCU included, and so it wasn't the best season overall despite getting a team in the playoff. But it does say, look, the future is still very bright here. And we were talking a little bit in our Frogs of War staff group chat about like what is the tiers of quarterbacks going into next season, and who would be your first team all conference going into preseason next year. And just the way these guys put on shows in each of these games, Garrett Green, Noah Fafita, even Alan Bowman, Avery Johnson was amazing for Kansas State. Jason Bean, is still, I guess Jalen Daniels is coming back, but Jason Bean is still the man. Baron Morton put on a show. So, I think that the Big 12 continues to be well positioned for the future and should, I think, could be an extremely exciting conference next season. And I think that, yes, you won't have Oklahoma or Texas, but these teams are still competing at a very high level. So, and yeah, I haven't watched a whole ton of it, to be honest. I mean, I think there's part of it when TCU didn't make a bowl game, we kind of just turned our attention to the transfer portal and turned our attention to recruiting. And, I'll still have it on in the background or something, or, these day games while I'm working, it's on the TV while I'm working. But, yeah, I can't say that I've sat down and watched entire games, except I watched a whole bunch. I guess just yesterday, it's really picked up. We're getting closer to these playoff games, to the New Year's Six games. And I guess the Cotton Bowl is on right now while we're recording. I'm not watching it. The first half was pretty boring, but catching this Alamo Bowl and that Pop-Tarts Bowl last night, that was a ton of fun. And it's like, all right, college football is still the best. And the bowl season, as much as people hate, like, oh, these meaningless exhibition games, I mean, it's still, it's all whatever. Life is meaningless. It's fun, guys. Just have a good time with the bowl game. So, yeah, I guess on the negative side, I thought that Iowa State looked terrible today against Memphis. Memphis. Hey, shout out to Memphis for being an American Athletic Conference team to actually be able to beat a Power 5 team on its schedule. Way to go. I don't know if there are other American Athletic Conference teams who have failed to do such a thing.
If you scroll social media, you might not know either.
Yeah, I guess we could talk about that. That's the other big thing of the bowl games. I don't know if we talked about that before we hopped on, but about how poor SMU just continues to get piled on in this postseason. They don't get the opportunity to play in the Fiesta Bowl. They get Liberty selected over them, but then in their own bowl game against Boston College, they have to go to Boston to play in a baseball stadium. It's pouring rain. It looks miserable. They get beat by a 6-6 Boston College team to go, to lose their third game again, and 0-3 against Power 5 opponents for the season. And they're getting called out in the Florida State litigation against the ACC, where they're like, look at this. This team is coming in and adds no value, and it's terrible. And they're getting cooked by the lawyers there. And then Texas State comes to the bowl that is hosted at SMU's home stadium and brings more fans than have showed up for a single SMU game all season, and drinks all of their beer out of the entire stadium. A stadium that is known for running out of refreshments during games. They're incapable of keeping up. So, I guess good luck in the ACC next year. But even in what has been SMU's best season in 4 decades, still been an easy target to pick fun at.
Huge shout out to the Texas State faithful are living up to their reputation as they drank that stadium. By the end of the third quarter, the entire stadium was out of alcohol, and by the end of the first half, the entire Texas State side was out of alcohol. So, and to get over, I think it was 26,000 roughly fans in that stadium. Most, as you said, most that have been in that stadium this year. As you said, for SMU, it's insult to injury to further insult and injury, as Florida State, they're on their way out of the ACC and they got to kick SMU while they're down. And it's kind of amazing to me that SMU still has like a burner community on Twitter, because they just haven't accomplished anything really meaningful. And it's like every small victory seems to be heightened to such a major degree when in reality, uh, you can't beat Power Five teams. And if you need an idea of where you're going to be at in the ACC, you faced a mediocre Boston College team. Granted, it was at Fenway Park, but still a 6-6 Boston College team, and you looked outclassed. So, and on top of that, you're paying the conference. I mean, you're not going to take any revenue from the conference for 9 years. So, I mean, the boosters, hopefully they're not bled dry in the first couple of years, because I don't know if this is going to get any better for SMU. But enough rambling about the Mustangs for now. TCU or Texas rather is going to be taking on Washington. I wish it was TCU.
Oh, yeah.
Texas would be taking on Washington here in the college football playoff. That'll be an opportunity for the Big 12 to maybe pick up another win or another 2 wins should Texas make a run to the national championship. And I agree with what you said about where the conference is at in terms of its competitiveness. I think, of course, you're going to lose some branding and name value with Oklahoma and Texas departing, but some of these teams are very well positioned for the immediate future. And, even TCU with one of the best transfer classes coming in for 2024 and a solid recruiting class and a change at a key coordinator position. Hopefully TCU can bounce back and be right up there as well. And with some of the newcomers coming in, it's going to be really fun to see what the new Big 12 conference looks like going into 2024, as I think that'll be a nice segue into our final nugget of the podcast this evening, which is our reflection on 2023. It's New Year's right around the corner. Again, New Year's Eve is Sunday, New Year's Day, Monday. And we thought it'd be appropriate to just reflect on 2023. And there were so many great moments for TCU sports this year. And sure, many of these came over the first 6 months of the year, but gosh, TCU baseball making a deep run to the College World Series, TCU men's basketball making it to the second round of the NCAA tournament for the second year in a row, the non-rev success from programs like men's tennis and beach volleyball and rifle and equestrian making runs to the national championships. And I mean, the men's tennis team won the indoor national championship. And just as recently as this fall, I mean, TCU indoor, the women's volleyball team in the fall makes it to the second round of the NCAA tournament for the second year in a row, another winning season under Jason Williams. And what we're seeing with the women's basketball team right now is, again, unprecedented success, finishing non-conference play unbeaten. So there have been a lot of great moments for TCU in 2023. We wish we could say that the national championship would be on this list, but we're blacking that game out from our memory banks here in the near future. But I guess, Anthony, for you, when you look back on 2023 for TCU, what are your favorite moments? And I guess what stands out to you most about what the university was able to accomplish this year?
Okay, I know you said we're blacking out the national championship game, but I have to say that in the calendar year 2023, TCU played in the national championship game.
That is very true. That is a thing that happened.
And I would say one of the moments of 2023, Max Duggan bullies his way into the end zone for a touchdown against Georgia, and the score's 10-7, and in the national championship game, TCU. So yes, whatever happened the rest of the game, that we could black out. But, I think that that is an incredible. I don't think we can ever overstate how crazy it is that happened, and that that experience for that team and for this fan base. However many people slipped and fell and cracked their skulls in SoFi and the team doing so on the field as well. But to have that experience is still pretty incredible, and it's still going to be a moment that people will always remember. So I don't want to discount that as a moment. Man, there's the Jacoby Coles hitting basically a buzzer beater to win an NCAA tournament game. Is That's probably going to be my moment. It's going to be hard because the baseball had a bunch of moments that I think you could say these are all-time great moments. But playing in the national championship game and winning a March Madness game with a near buzzer beater those are, man, that's really, really hard to top. I loved watching this men's tennis team play. They were just so exciting from the entire season, all the way to the Final Four. Beach volleyball, again, all the way, I think, into the Final Four as well. Even the soccer team this season didn't make the tournament. There were moments watching that team, getting to watch Gracie Bryan play and Cam Lancaster and that team. It was terrific. For me, I will say my best moment is going to be the Jacoby Cole shot to beat Arizona State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, what the baseball team did in the spring is something that we may never see again, because at that point in the season, TCU was really a bubble team. Rewinding to before the Big 12 tournament started,
Mm-hmm.
TCU was in a position where they were in jeopardy of not even making the tournament. And Elijah Nunez robs a potential walk-off home run to pick up a pivotal win in the series against Kansas State. From that point on, what TCU did from the Big 12 tournament onward is just absolutely insane to me. And I think it's something that we may never see again, because not only did TCU win the Big 12 tournament, TCU destroyed everybody in the Big 12 tournament. They won every game, and it wasn't remotely close. They were scoring 10 runs every game. Multiple guys were going deep. Braden Taylor and Cole Fontenelle and Trey Richardson and Eli Nunez, everybody was just going off in that tournament. And the pitching finally felt like it was starting to come around. Louis Rodriguez and Cole Klecker and Ben Abelt were coming up with big performances on the mound, starting and out of the bullpen. To go from that to destroying everybody in the regional and then sweeping Indiana State to win the Super to get to the College World Series, it was just so crazy to me how the season went from seemingly being on life support to now all of a sudden you're in the College World Series, and you go there and you pick up a couple of wins as well, and you were a couple plays here or there from maybe being in the finals. So to have that season end that way, and then to have 7 or 8 players either get drafted or sign contracts, that to me was something that is really special, because just that run that we saw at the end of the season may not be something that we see again. And I think just it's not in 2023, but just the 2022-23 calendar year for TCU sports,
yes,
may be the greatest that we've ever seen or will ever see, from top to bottom. The major revenue programs, the non-revenue programs. I mean, beach volleyball is now a national powerhouse. I mean, TCU has been at the top of the country or near the top of the country for multiple seasons now. The men's tennis team winning the indoor nationals and making a deep run in the outdoor tournament with guys like Luke Famba and Sander Jong and Jake Fearnley and Jack Pennington Jones. Luke Famba and Sander Jong both had outstanding careers from an individual standpoint. The rifle team, the equestrian team, continue to be ranked near the top of the country. it was just again, like the baseball run, it may not be something that we see again in the near future or at all. So it's something that we shouldn't take for granted as fans. And even though the second half of 2023 hasn't provided those same kind of moments, it's still something worth cherishing. And I guess as we get ready to turn the clock to 2024, it's going to be a year of some changes. Just looking at football for starters, you're going to have a new defensive coordinator. You're going to have a lot of new players coming in. You're going to have a new group of teams coming into the conference with Colorado and Arizona State and Utah coming in from the Pac-12. We're going to have Texas and Oklahoma leaving for the SEC. So for most of TCU's athletic programs, not just football, it's going to be a very different conference. And it's kind of interesting to think about when you consider that the Big 12 has basically had, I don't know, 4 different variations over the last 15 years, from teams leaving to TCU and West Virginia coming in to being at 14 schools, and now you're going to be at 16. And who knows if we're even done at this point with some of the drama that's surrounding Florida State and some of the other teams in the ACC. But that's going to be a change to come in 2024. And the baseball team is going to have a lot of new players coming in through the portal. We've talked about some of them in the past. The men's basketball team hopefully can get back to the tournament again. A lot of these guys are seniors who may be playing their last games at TCU. So it's going to be a year of change and a year of transition, I think, for TCU in 2024. And Anthony, I'll ask you this question as we get ready to move into the new year and we think about resolutions and what we want to see from these athletic programs in 2024. What are some of the goals or some of the resolutions that you would like to see some of these programs meet in 2024?
Yeah, it's hard to set goals or hopes or expectations for these programs, because coming off of, as you just ran down, coming off of that 2023 where they achieved a whole lot, so it's hard to say, well, everyone should just go win the national championship. That's what you should do in every program. While that's the goal, I think what you want to see TCU basketball make the tournament, win a game, and then win a second game. I want to see TCU in the Sweet 16 this season. It's going to be an uphill battle. I think TCU is going to be a bubble team for a significant part of this season that will be struggling to get into the tournament. But just like we saw with baseball last season, just getting that shot, once you're in, you can go on that run. So I think the resolution for TCU basketball is to make the Sweet 16, and that women's basketball makes the tournament and makes a run and makes it exciting as well. I think there's every reason to expect that program is ready for the spotlight going forward. So excited for that. Baseball, again, I don't know how you do much better than, again, reaching the Final Four. All you can say is, let's get over that final hump. You got to get to that championship series, which is just such a ridiculous thing to ask of a program, but that is the next step. That's the next step to take. And I think TCU has, this roster could be really something. The pitching staff could be really something. So I think there's every reason to have those high hopes for TCU baseball again. All these non-rev sports, we know it's going to be fun to watch volleyball dominate, to watch men's tennis dominate. They're going to come back out again and be terrific. And then football, I don't know. It's too early to really know. The resolution is, I don't know. Don't be embarrassing. Um, I think TCU could win the conference next year. Um, is that a realistic goal? I don't know. I think it's too far away to know. But with your two blue bloods out of the conference, you're bringing in all this talent from the four corner schools. Where does TCU stack up in that? And I think TCU football must position itself near the top or at the top of this new conference going forward. Every year, that has to be the expectation for program this well funded, and this the facilities and all of the effort that is put in to make TCU football great. They need to go achieve it this season, and I think for all TCU fans can reasonably have that expectation to not just get to a bowl game, but to get to a high level bowl game and be competing for the Big 12 championship towards the end of the season.
Yeah, you've hit on quite a few things that I agree with, and I was going to say as well. I think for football, uh, I mean, TCU should not be failing to make bowl games. I think, especially with the new Big 12 coming and Texas and Oklahoma on their way out, some new schools coming in, TCU has everything it needs to be positioned to be a perennial top team in the conference. And so to not be able to make bowl games to me is entirely unacceptable. And if you continue to fail to qualify for bowl games in the future, it's really due to your own incompetence. So I think the goal, the resolution for TCU football is to establish that seat near the top of the conference and become a dominant force in this new Big 12 for the near future. I think TCU has the resources. I think TCU has the talent. It's a question, I think, at this point, if TCU has some of the coaching with some of the coordinators, and we'll see how that pans out in 2024. But to go from appearing in a national title game to not making a bowl, which team hasn't done in college football for the first time in 13 years or so, was extremely disappointing. So you got to be able to bounce back next year, and we will see if TCU football can do that. Basketball, agree with you 100%. Last two seasons, making it to the second round and just coming so close. I mean, TCU had it right in its hands against Arizona with the Ben Matherin team, and following that up against Gonzaga, getting torched by Drew Timme, which was just, the kryptonite for TCU all of last year was having to guard skilled big guys. And it was just a brutal matchup, and you just hoped that TCU could play a perfect game to win. And they were right there at the end and just could not get over that hump. So hopefully TCU can break through this year and get hot at the right time. If TCU can find a way to get into the tournament, close the season out on a winning streak or on a high note, anything can happen. It's called March Madness for a reason. The big one for me, and this is something that we're starting to see not only at the university, but also throughout college sports, is the growth in women's sports. Continue to grow women's athletics into 2024. I think what Mark Campbell is doing right now with the women's basketball program is setting up to potentially be really special, and to see how far the program has come in such a short period of time, to the point where, I mean, Haley Cavender is signing with TCU after a really good career at Miami, where she maybe could have gone to any big power school in the country.
Yep.
And she chooses TCU. And you have players like Sedona Prince coming in and Madison Connor coming in. And we've talked about it so many times, but the team is successful. The attendance is up. And the same goes for women's volleyball. I mean, back-to-back winning seasons under Jason Williams, back-to-back second-round trips in the NCAA tournament. And you set an attendance record against Texas, a team that went on to win the national championship, and you took them all the way to the very end of that fifth set. I mean, you were right there with a chance, a legitimate chance to beat the team that went on to win the national championship. So it's really exciting what's going on with women's sports, not only across the college sports landscape, but TCU's women's programs, not just the major ones like basketball and volleyball, but also the non-rev programs like equestrian and rifle and beach volleyball, continuing to be some of the strongest in the country. Continue to invest in women's sports and continue to invest in as fans continue to support, and let's grow the support. Let's get more people in the stands for women's basketball games. Let's get more people in the stands for women's volleyball games. I mean, if you don't believe it can be done, just look at what Nebraska volleyball did this year, and look at what LSU's women's basketball program and some of these other programs have done. It's possible when the time and the effort and the money is put into it. So that's my big one is let's continue to support and continue to grow the women's programs at the university.
I love it. And shoot, one that we didn't even mention, the women's tennis team last year won the NIT tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think goal for them is to, place higher within the conference and place higher, get a chance to compete at the true NCAA tournament, coming off of that NIT championship last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that, we will go ahead and wrap up our podcast for the evening. We hope that y'all have a great new year. Be safe. Don't do anything stupid. We will be back in 2024 with our next episode. We have some basketball coming up this weekend that we will talk about. Again, things will probably be pretty quiet on the football front, but we may have some updates to share. TCU still has some former players in the portal, including Chandler Morris, the quarterback. So maybe some news pops up over the next week that we can share. But we appreciate all of you listening again on the Frogs Up TCU Sports Podcast, and continue to follow us here on the podcast and online at frogsofwar.com. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Frogs of War. We're continuing to grow our platforms, and I think to give ourselves a plug here and a little bit of a pat on the back, the support that we've received from all of you guys and all of you girls, not only on social media, but on the website and here on the podcast over the last year has been really great. So we appreciate that, and we hope that you continue to support us going into 2024 as we've grown our platform quite a bit within this last year, and we want to continue to grow the platform. So be sure to give us a like, a follow, a share on social media. Give us a comment on the website, frogsofwar.com, and interact with us here on Frogs Up. We have Q&As that we post. We have fan polls that we post. So a lot of great TCU content from us and our staff writers that do a phenomenal job of covering all things TCU sports. So with that, we will go ahead and sign off for the evening. I'm Russ Hodges. That is Anthony North. And we will sign off one last time for 2023 with a Frogs Up.
Frogs Up.